Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy. This right here is the Ferrum Forge Knives slash Massdrop Gent. First off though, I want to thank Massdrop, and I got to give full disclosure. This was provided to me by the manufacturer for review and to take a look at. This is a prototype that they sent along, and I've tried not to let this affect my review, and we do have to assume that this is one of the better quality controlled knives ever, so it may not be representative, but still, full disclosure, this was sent to me by Massdrop. But anyways, there you go. Next thing, size comparison. Pardon me. First off, here it is against your Spyderco Delica. So you can see in terms of blade length, we're actually right in the same department, right at that 3-inch area. Here it is with your Ontario Rat number 2. And, of course, your Rat number 1 here. So, again, same rough department as the Rat 2. It's a smaller knife, which is great. Here it is against the Kershaw Dividend, and this is the S35 Dividend, the House of Blades exclusive model. So again, we're right in that same sort of department. And here it is against the Ferrum Forge. These are some of the other collaborations. This is the Falcon, although this is the wing pattern here. And this is the Crux, which is a bigger knife out of the Ferrum Forge Massdrop collaboration. And speaking of that collaboration, let's talk about that for a second here. This is a collaboration between Ferrum Forge, who are a set of custom knife makers, did a lot of mid-tech stuff. Now they're focusing on this. And then We Knives is the maker of these guys, a Chinese company, great OEMs, 100%, and then Massdrop, which is a mass distribution sort of, well, price clubby sort of company. I don't even know what to call Massdrop anymore, but they are what they are. And so this is a three-way collaboration, and that's who all is involved. Then finally, this is a prototype, as you can see from the P0005, a 005 thing. They are swearing to me, though, Massdrop that is, that this is representative of the final version, and I'm sure hoping so. But if you see differences between this prototype and the final version, go ahead and leave me a difference as a comment down in the comments there. So, anyways, let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this very interesting little pocket knife here. So first off, on the good side, I gotta say, Massdrop has been handling this series of knives pretty well. I was initially skeptical. I had some negative experiences with Massdrop customer service early on, but I've made some orders since, and they seem to have righted the ship, and everything I've heard on these guys, the release of the Crux and the Falcon from people, is that they're handling them well, and so that's good. It's not being treated, well, like you might expect a mass distribution sort of people to handle it. They've been very responsive to issues, so that's very nice. Next thing, size-wise, this is good. This is in a nice little size range here. We're coming in right around 3 inches, a little bit underneath, which is good. That's enough blade for most people to do pretty much anything. Well, okay, there are things you need a longer blade for, but still. It's a very nice size for a gentleman's sort of knife, which is what this is aiming to be. So that's good. Next thing, the ergonomics on this guy are actually pretty solid. You can either choke back a little bit, or you can choke forward. This finger choil is very small, so you're going to want to keep that one in mind. But look, this fits very nicely within my hand, and even with or without the choil, I'm getting a 4-finger grip on this. I have smaller hands than most. That might play a role, but still, something to keep in mind. Next thing, this is a very nice little action on this knife here. Fires out 100% reliably. I've never had a missed flip on this except when I slip off the flip tab there, but it is a very, very solid action, and even on the shut, it's actually pretty solid too. And I appreciate that very much. One thing actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to back up for a second on the ergonomics. You can see here that this has the scales are slightly proud of, the liners that is, are slightly proud of the scales. I don't know if this is a liner lock or a frame lock or what, given all things considered, but anyways, this is something I've complained about in the past on knives, like this Spyderco Gale Bradley too. But here it's actually reasonable because, A, there's a nice little bit of curvature to these everything, and also these are thick enough liners that it doesn't particularly matter. So if you look at that and think, well, why didn't he comment on that? That's what's going on there. Anyways, I'm sorry, that's beside the point. Back at the ranch, like I said, the action is very nice. No complaints there. Next thing, the branding on this guy is pretty subtle. The very first round of the Falcon, actually the Falcon in general, just has this really big billboardy sort of Massdrop S35VN thing on the front of it there. That's not something I'm super, super in love with. This is much more subtle, and if you're trying to make a gentlemanly knife, you need to have very subtle branding, and so they've done that very well. Next thing, build quality-wise, you know what? For the price, this is pretty reasonably made. Everything seems to match up. It's not like there are huge gaps between the scales and everything is by and large, pretty solid about this knife. And so that's something I very much appreciate. Next thing, the clip on this guy is good, and it's a nice arrangement here for a gentleman-style knife, because you've got a very deep carry clip. There's just a little bit of this knife sticking up ahead, but you've got plenty of ramp still. Ergonomically speaking, honestly, it's not much of a hot spot, because it's not much of a clip. There's not all that much going on here. And then one thing I'm going to highlight very specifically, aside from the fact that it's ambidextrous, see, holes on this side, but take a look at the screws here. The screws are completely flush. They sit down into this plate here, rather than in a lot of knives, particularly with deep carry clips. Oh, do I have anyone who did this wrong on the table right now? Yes, here we go. So on this divot end here, you can see the screws is sticking up into the place where the clip, and so this reduces the amount of space, basically, for your pants material to sit inside there. So they've done that very much right, and that's something that takes thinking and that I very much appreciate very much. Very much appreciate, very much. There you go. Next thing, this is a solid blade. This is S35VN steel, which is absolutely one of the better steels out there, 100%. It is using thinner stock than pretty much anything Ferrum Forge has ever made before. It's thinner than the crux of the Falcon. Still, maybe could be a little bit thinner. And the grind on it is actually reasonably thin as well. Although, again, it's a gentleman's knife. It could be a little bit more aggressive there. But look, it's a solid blade, and it absolutely does cut things. And combined with this finger choil, which also serves as a sharpening choil, which I appreciate, is a very, very nice little shape. And it's a nice utilitarian sort of blade. I like the blade on this guy. It's very, very nice there. Then finally, on the whole, on the good side, this is a very nice minimalist little flipper knife. There's really not all that much going on here. You got a pair of G10 scales. You got a pair of titanium liners here. You got a good solid flipping action, a good solid blade. It's not a knife that's like over-designed. It's not a knife that's completely over the top. It's not, well, this. It is a very simple sort of thing. But what is done very well. And honestly to me, or honest me for short, that's a beautiful thing. So I appreciate the fact that they've made a nice minimalist flipper knife that's not trying to do all that much, but does what it does very good. And the fact that it's also got a solid blade, a nice deep carry clip. It's reasonably made with subtle branding on it. The action is absolutely very solid. Has very nice ergonomics. The thinner blade stock than usual from Ferrum Forge. Great size. And then Mastrop has been supporting this line well. To me, what's great about this knife, though, is the price. This knife is $80. That is pretty intense in terms of value. This is a price point that's dominated by knives with ho-hum steels, decent actions, G10 and FRN. You know, $80 knives like, for instance, your Spyderco Delica, which didn't used to be an $80 knife, but apparently now is. You know, this is VG10. This is plastic. This is a backlock sort of thing. Or you get knives like in the Kaiser Vanguard series, which is a very fine knife, absolutely 100%, but it's G10, or maybe it's VG10 steel, maybe it's, you know, plasticky kind of thing. The thing is, no. For $80, this is an S35VN steel frame lock with a great manual action. Sure, they didn't do as much with this guy as they could have. It's not particularly ornate or over the top, but the value here is absolutely on point. For $80, you are getting a whole bunch of knife for not all that much money, and it's competitive with some of the very best knives on the market right now. And so, to me, that's what's great about this guy. 100% is that price. Let's go to the bad side. First off, on the bad side, randomly a Phillips head pivot screw underneath here. I'm really curious to see if that's different in the final version. That just struck me as so freaking odd. That just blew my mind. But that's beside the point. Next thing, the lockup on this guy is a little bit on the early side. It's not like dangerous or anything like that, but it's like 15%, maybe 20 being generous here. It's not dangerous, like I said, but it is a little bit creepy. I tend to prefer a nice halfway lockup. It's absolutely not a big deal, though. The screws on this guy are very, very shallow. We Knives, the maker, has screw problems. We know this to be the case. But if we can see here that they've taken these Torx screws and then they've added a little bit of a divot in there, which means that there's really not that much space for your screws to kind of grab in there. Oh, come on. Focus. And so, as a result, this is a knife that is, well, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that. And as you saw, it was actually a little bit hard to get these clip screws out of there because of that shallowness. So, I hope that's something they can work on in the future. Next thing, again, a nitpick here. The blade on this guy is a little bit over-polished. You can see here that the line between the grind and the Ricasso here is very subtle. There's not a whole lot going on with it, and that's not something I'm super in love with. Next thing, like I mentioned, the sharpening choil on this guy is not super big. I have relatively small hands and small fingers, and it's, even for me, a little bit on the small side. It's a little bit like, whoa, okay, be careful there, Nick. For you, if you've got bigger hands, this just doesn't have a finger choil. This has a sharpening choil. So even compared to other of their knives, like for instance the Crux, which gives you a much larger choil, or even I believe the Falcon is bigger than that. Yeah, take a look at that. This is a very, very small choil, so keep that one in mind. Next thing, the black G10 that this is using is honestly a little bit uninspiring. This is just crying out for carbon fiber. I mean, picture a nice, this is WE Knives, also the Eschaton, although this is a more expensive knife still. But nonetheless, if this were in a carbon fiber, this would be earning its gent title in freaking spades. That would be a very, very impressive piece. As it is, the G10 is fine, and actually it's better than I expected it to be. It's not like lazy G10. It's not like freaking, I don't know, this isn't so bad. It's not, this kind of G10 where it's just like, oh, it's G10. This is better done, but still. Then finally, the blade is a little bit close at the back of the knife here. You can see here that the edge of that blade is right up at the edge there. I can touch this blade just by running my finger across it there. It's not as dangerous as some because of the thinner blade stock and whatnot, but it's still a little creepy, and I really wish makers would just back that off, give a little bit more tolerance there. Not a big deal, but it's a deal. So those are the bad things. The blade is close at the back when closed. The black G10 is a little uninspiring. The choil is a little bit small for me, which means it's going to be very small for you. The blade is over-polished. The screws are very shallow. The lockup is a little bit early on it, and it does have a random Phillips head pivot screw, which just blew my mind. On the ugly side, there is only one ugly issue, but it is ugly indeed, and that is that this flipper tab here is entirely untextured. What I mean is, well, take a look at it. There's nothing on this little guy here. Zoom in a little bit, having focus issues here today. As opposed to on most knives, even other collaborations with Ferrum Forge that have this kind of a little bit of a texturing on there, I find myself, as I'm carrying this knife on a regular basis, slipping off of the back of the knife, and that's not something I'm super in love with. And so, yeah, that's not great. I do wish that this had a little bit of texturing. Even just a single jimp here would be absolutely welcome and would make this knife a lot more reliable to deploy with wet hands or something like that. So, to me, that's what's ugly, is that it's lacking a little tiny bit of texturing here on the flipper tab. So, final conclusions. Look, this is a very impressive little knife, and it is honestly one of the best values in the knife world right now. I mean, this is an S35 VN frame lock or liner lock or something for $80, and it is a damn nice design too, with a nice minimalist sort of aesthetic that is very versatile. I think this is a knife that would be fine in the boardroom and would be fine on the factory floor, so to speak, both in terms of function as well as in terms of looks. I think it's very attractive. It is absolutely begging for a carbon fiber version. Holy crap, guys, please carbon fiber this. And the flipper tab does absolutely need a little bit of texturing for this to really be a hit out of the park. That was annoying to me 100%. But for the price you're paying, honestly, there's not that many other options. I mean, for $80, where are you going to do better? I mean, the only thing that comes to mind for me is a similar thing. And feel free to leave other suggestions in the comments there. But is this little guy? This is a Kershaw Dividend. This is the House of Blades exclusive, but it is in S35 VN steel. And it is also around this same price point. And you know what? It's similar, but this is also an assisted knife. So it's got a spring in there that a lot of people don't necessarily love. And so, but looking around at the competition, even most of the other Chinese OEM knives just aren't matching this guy in terms of steel or in terms of design. So look, final conclusion, this is a really nice knife, and it's got a really, really nice price, and it's got some versatility that I think a lot of the high-speed, low-drag tactical pieces in vogue these days just don't have. And it all comes in at a very, very nice price. And so if you're looking for something that is nice, versatile, relatively minimalist, and isn't going to break the bank, then I think you should absolutely consider taking this little gent out on the town. Anyways, hope this has been interesting to you, that I was gentle with this review, and that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.